Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am joined in the studio by my friend, Jane Lovas. Jane is the CEO of Lovas Consulting. She's a speaker. She's an author. She's done so many things. She's a coach for women in business. She helps people find their it, and then she helps them move toward it graciously. Jane and I have done several things together in business. If you followed my brand or the shows in the past, then you know that Jane and I co-authored a book together. It's called Seen and Sustained, Best Practices in Communication that increase the visibility of the small and diverse business. She and I have spoken together in many ways. We have also partnered on projects together. And so we've had a lot of time to talk and do business together over the years. One thing that Jane is busy focused on right now is helping people live and lead on purpose. And I wanted to talk to Jane about this topic this week because I know how difficult it is to find your purpose, number one, and then to be able to navigate toward it, especially when we have responsibilities in life, we have jobs, we have family, we have things and people that depend on us. And so being able to graciously move toward our purpose in life is not very easy at all. And Jane seems to have her finger on the pulse of what this is all about and how you will be able to do that in an even better way once you have seen and heard this show. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to some and reacquaint with others my dear friend, Jane Lovas. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Akia.
Thanks for being on.
Oh, I am so thrilled to be here today.
You can pay me for that intro later.
Yeah, really.
Jane is my friend. Jane, so tell us about Lovas Consulting.
Well, I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, leaders of all different types that are looking to know their purpose and create their vision and mission and create sustainable, transformation in their businesses.
Great. How long have you been running Lovas Consulting?
Going on about 5 years now.
Yeah. And I mean, getting to Lovas Consulting wasn't easy, right? I mean, that wasn't your first thing. You've done several different things in your career.
Right. Yes. I've got years of telecommunications and finance and software development, technology.
Right.
So
many things.
So many
great things. Pick a trade. She has it. You've done a little bit of it, perhaps.
Right.
So what problems do you help people solve with Lovas Consulting?
Where they're going and how they're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot go anyplace if you have no vision.
Right.
And so creating that vision, creating the strategy, and then the actions to get there are what I help them create. And then I help leaders that are looking to transform their business.
Right. And when you talk about vision, of course, this is something that you and I have done a lot of work around. Yes. And it's really great to see that there is a lot more talk and discussion and tools and all sorts of things around this whole concept of casting a vision and then moving toward it. So it's not as much of a foreign concept anymore when it comes to actually living or moving toward it. I do think that that's still very much a challenge for people in business. It's a beautiful thing that, is framed and put on a wall, but actualizing that and moving toward it, I know you're busy helping people do that, right? And
keeping that vision to the forefront of you.
Right. How do you define leadership?
In a couple different ways. It's funny because my daughter and I were just having this conversation because she is applying for a graduate program in leadership. And they were asking, what's the difference between a leader and a manager? And managers manage things.
Right.
They keep track of supplies and inventory and make sure tasks get done. Right. Whereas a leader really is there to inspire and to ensure that all the roadblocks are moved out of the way, so that everyone can do what it is that they're there to do. So a leader really has to be able to clearly state where it is they're going and what it is they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So that everyone can, because it's the everyone else that actually takes the leader there. Mm-hmm. The leader shines the flashlight, as it were.
Right. I mean, there are different philosophies out there, too, about where the leader is actually, standing. Is that leader in the front, or are they behind, or somewhere in the middle?
And I think there are all those places at different times, depending on what they need to, where they need to be at what time.
Right.
Yeah.
And this concept of leading situationally. Mm-hmm. So just because you're a leader in this particular instance doesn't mean that's a global definition for you.
Right. And some of the most amazing leaders that I've worked with have not officially been leaders.
Right.
They are the ones that have picked up the clear vision and are sharing that and enabling and encouraging people to go with them.
Right. So, I mean, this is more of a philosophical question, but why do you think people gravitate toward leaders?
I think because when they're a great leader, they're energetic, they're vibrant, they just attract. Mm-hmm. So others want to be around them because they've got that energy. They're mm-hmm. doing things, they're creating, they're moving forward. And I know when I find a leader like that, I want to be with them because that's what I create and that's what I gravitate towards.
And when you define leadership, and I know you have your own definition of what this means, and I'm assuming that this has evolved over the years as you too have been in leadership positions. What would you say the definition of leadership is? Leadership
is, for me, is the ability to share your vision in such a way that you inspire and motivate those that are with you to come forward. Think about Martin Luther King, mm-hmm. Gandhi. They had nobody said, "Oh, you're a leader in this organization."
Right.
They created that with their vision and their ability to inspire and attract others to come with them.
Mm-hmm. And would you agree that most leaders just, not that they are not intending to be a leader, but that's not their driving force?
True. And we still have way too much command and control. Mm-hmm. I'm in command and I tell you to do this.
Right.
And you don't have growth. You don't have transformation. You don't create legacies from that.
Right. So when it comes to then purpose, which, is a big ball of wax, for lots of people. Yeah. So many people are just afraid of that word purpose, or just seems as if it's so far out there. It's just this pie in the sky sort of thing. What is purpose?
I've had a number of those conversations lately, and a while back I got some real clarification on what purpose is, and I can now solve your problem about finding your purpose.
Really?
Yes, you can stop searching. Our purpose is we are here to be love and express love. And I know that's pretty radical to say in a business setting.
It is. And I was going to get to that. I was going to get to this whole concept of using the word love in a professional setting, whether or not it's a small business or, a large, majority firm. It's just not a term that's used.
Right. And that's because we think of love as the romantic love.
Right.
It's wishy-washy. It doesn't have any real power. And yet, in reality, love has the highest intensity of power. Mm-hmm. Think about the grandmother whose grandchild is under a car, and she picks that car up. Mm-hmm. And it's her love for that child that gives her the power to do that. Love is a very powerful word, and power is something that attracts. The opposite of power is force.
Right.
And that's trying to make somebody do something. So when as leaders, we can express from that place of love, when there's a clarity that comes through that attracts and pulls the love out of everyone else. And now, in an organization, you're not going to walk around going, "Oh, I love you, I love you."
Sure.
What you're going to be able to get is a real clarity of your vision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, how do you do you have any examples of that? Because I was going to say, how do you really teach that? I'm assuming that's by leading and showing.
Right. And what it allows you to do is, when you look at your purpose, and when we do vision and mission mapping, we start with the purpose, and then we create our vision from that. And then we go to our mission. And what I have seen is, when you start with that place of, I'm here to be love and express love.
Right.
And then I look at, what is my vision? It really takes it to that place of, how is the world going to be a better place because of what I am looking to create?
Yeah. So why don't we back up just a little bit and talk about vision and mission then?
Sure.
Since we have brought that up and kind of talked around it a little bit.
Right, because that's something Akia and I have done that many times.
Right. And so this vision and mission mapping concept is all about helping leaders cast out, articulate, and write down that vision for their business or for their whatever it is that they're trying to do, their life, their movement, and then create messaging around what their mission is as well, which connects to the vision. And those things then allow us to build out programs and processes that will allow us to move toward really seeing those things come into fruition and being able to be a part of those things. So in order to get to that level of purpose, those are some of the things that you work through in order to get to, to fine tune that and be able to truly, walk within it authentically. So when you are working with people today and they are finding their purpose and hearing you talk about love and so forth, how are they responding to that?
As I get more comfortable with it,
right,
they get more comfortable with it.
It sounds so simple.
It is, and yet
it sounds so much easier than
Right. I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I need to find my purpose. I just need to find my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. And these are the kinds of conversations I have fairly regularly. And so I looked at her and I said, can I share a secret with you? She said, sure. I said, I know what your purpose is. She said, what? I said, you're here to be love and express love. And she said, okay. And a few days later, we were talking again. She said, I want to thank you for that, because that has opened up so much.
Right. So then naturally, everybody has a different definition of love. And I don't mean that,
right,
eros and,
right,
philos and, agape and all of those great, terms that identify different types of love. But depending upon, the way you were reared or brought up or whatever, your definition or understanding or even connection or interaction with love differs.
And the basic definition that I use is this or something better for the good of all.
That's great.
And that means it's going to be good for me. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for everyone that I don't even know that might be impacted.
Right.
And when you start thinking and we start creating businesses from that aspect,
Right.
that is really going to transform the world.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm interested in is.
Love it. So how do you combine your love, of course, and wanting to do that greater good, and see that greater good, be done? How do you combine that and keep that on track with your actual vision and, wanting to actualize those things? Because, my next question is, how do you do that when you are in the face of force or forceful people or forceful energy?
Right. I have included a process that I've used for a number of years, and I've pulled it into my business over about the last 3 or 4 years. And last year I started running a group for women entrepreneurs, and it's called a discernment process.
Right.
And it's about going within and listening.
Right.
And
this is different from your SAGE process?
This is the SAGE process.
So let me just give a shout out to the SAGE process. It's an amazing program. Look up Jane. We'll give her a URL at the end of this show. But if you're really trying to lead yourself and follow your own thoughts and goals, that's a great program for you to go through. I mean, I just, I still have all my notes. I love it. It was an amazing process. So,
and we've got a number of women that have gone through it for going on close to 1.5 years now. And what we're seeing, which are all things that I'd known, but in taking this group of women through it, is, and we know this in our lives and in our business, it's not a straight path from here to here.
of course,
It's a path that moves back and forth. And the secret, though, the piece that this has is helping you get in touch with whatever you want to call it. Your connection to your inner guidance, your intuition, if you want to use that word, the divine, God, spirit. You can use whatever word you want. We all know at some level that we're connected, that there's something bigger than us, and that we're connected to that.
how did you arrive at love? How did you arrive at that as...
That's what we're here.
Yeah.
Well, a number of different ways. There's a book, and my mind just went blank on the author's name.
It's okay.
The book is called Power versus Force. And in that book, he talks about power and the power of power versus what we think is the power of force.
Right.
And power is an attraction, and force is
Sort of
a
repels or
pushing
something.
and trying to pull things as opposed to attract them. And what he has done in this is he has given all of our emotions, he's rated them on an energetic scale. And love has the highest emotion.
Wow.
Is rated the highest on this energetic scale. And he's rated, there are books that he's rated using this scale. His book, the Bible, the Quran, a number of other books, spiritual, non-spiritual, business books. And the books that get the higher rating tend to do better and impact more people. And I'm here, and I know you're here, because there's so much chaos in the world.
Jane, don't you make me cry on this show, Jane. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
And we're here to change that.
Right.
My vision is to create a shift in the paradigm of how businesses do business. I'm fine if you're a very successful financial business. There's
tertiary,
nothing wrong. That's
right?
yeah. What I want you to do is to have that positive impact and transform your lives, my lives, everyone's lives that are around you. Mm-hmm. And the world, in many respects, seems to be falling apart right now.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. I mean, it's just every day there is something else. It's exhausting.
Yeah. It
really is. I mean, it's just, I can only take it in doses now. I have to control media.
Yeah.
For myself. I mean, at some point I, can look at every single thing all the time, but now I just have to shut things down because there's just so much. And the next thing is always bigger and worse than what just happened, which was crazy. So it's just, there's just a lot going on. So we need messages like what you're talking about right now.
And the great thing is, out of that chaos is going to come something new.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book called Leading from the Emerging Future.
Mm-hmm.
And that book is so powerful. And what I've begun to take from that is most of the time we're leading from our past. Everything that happened in our past is what's driving us forward. Because we're gonna make something, we're gonna fix something, or we're reacting to things that hurt us in our childhood. And so the only thing we can create is more of our past when we lead from that.
Correct.
When we look at an emerging future, what's that future that's leading, that's coming to us, that's pulling us forward?
Mm-hmm.
And we see bits and pieces of it.
Right.
We have to pay attention.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think you have to really be in tune or attuned to?
You have to be, because it's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's small things that are happening. We see it around the world.
Right. You can be one of those early adopters or, just kind of get sucked in and, just wake up one day and say, oh, things are different. Guess I better move in this direction now. Looks like things have all changed.
And see, and you're part of that because you're opening up conversations.
I try to be.
And you want big thinkers. You want people that are thinking forward.
I do. And one of the things that I know about you, Jane, is that you're probably one of the most read persons that I have ever met in my entire life. Jane has probably read like 1,000 books. You should maybe, Ripley's Believe It or Not or something. Seriously. But one of Jane's thoughts is that if you've read 5 books, you are automatically an expert on something. So
yes.
Which I love. That's such an easy way to become an expert. So Jane says if you read 5 books in any particular area, then you are now an expert in that area. Why do you, and how do you come up with that concept?
I am sure that I read it someplace. And that if you think you're interested in something, in a topic, or you're thinking, ooh, I might want to do that someday, go read 5 books on it.
Right.
Become an expert on it. And also, if you can't get through 5 books, that's probably not something you want to be doing.
Well, you can, download and listen to it on audio or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. What, do you think is the reason people have so much challenge accepting that purpose, whether or not they say it's love or whatever they're trying to call it, or even if they have no term or anything to call it? Why do you think that's such a difficult thing for people?
Because our purpose really calls us to be who we really are. Calls us to be bigger than the life that most of us are living.
Right.
I was leading a call this morning, and we were actually talking about that, and that we're all being called. We're all being called to do something more. And there's fear. There's fear about stepping out of our safety, our backyard, as it were.
Right.
And some of us have pretty big backyards. The problem with backyards is there's still a fence around it.
Mm-hmm.
And our purpose really calls us to go beyond that.
And so that's metaphorically speaking. How do you have any examples of that or any practical ways that people can understand it?
Well, do you remember?
In case they're going out their back door and looking at their
backyard and going, oh. One of the things, and you probably remember that a client that we were working together with, and we were looking, she was trying to define her purpose and her vision. And I don't remember who said it. And it's just that has still resonated with me. It's not an MBA answer.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's not in the book.
It's not in the book.
It's not in the book.
It doesn't sound like somebody would write it down on a business plan. If it doesn't give you some emotion, if it doesn't make you feel, and if it doesn't scare you just a little bit,
Right.
it's not big enough.
Right. There's a thought out there that the cemetery has buried more dreams and visions and purposes and all those things. I mean, how many people do you think leave the earth without ever finding out what their purpose is? But the other part of that is living it. And I mentioned earlier in the show, we have responsibilities. It's amazing to uncover what that purpose is for our lives, but being able to move toward that, it can be really scary. And many times you see people and you hear people saying, well, I have this job. So I do this so I can do what I want to do. So I do what I have to do so I can do what I want to do. Or they have two different lives. How do you help people gravitate toward, that thing which they feel they are meant to do, even though they have other responsibilities that require them to, stay on the fence?
I was thinking of a conversation that I had just last week with a woman, and she's got a business that her husband had started. He passed away less than a year ago. She's got kids getting ready to go to college, and did not leave her with a lot of insurance and a big safety net. And we were talking about that, and she's like, I just really want to do this business, but I'm scared. And so we'd been doing some work, and I said, well, she called me and she said, I got a job offer. I said, well, if it gives you peace, take it and look at it as your daytime sponsor.
Right.
Her kids are old enough. They still need support, of course, after with what the family's going through.
Right.
But not the same as when they were little. So she can continue pursuing the business as she gets a job. And one of the things most of us, I think, don't look at is possibility.
Yeah.
What's the possibility and how could it happen?
But, one thing that you said earlier is that she was afraid. And you have written a book called.
Oh, yes.
I'll let you say the name of. I'll let you say the title of that one.
Put your big girl panties on and kick your fears in the ass.
So, tell us about that book, Jane.
Well, it's not a book that I wrote. It's actually illustrations, and I was going through a period in my life where I was dealing with a lot of my fears, and one of the ways that it came to me to deal with them was to draw these little black and white, not cartoons,
like
illustrations, yeah, is the word. And then I shared them with a couple people, and they said, oh, other people should see those. You should write a book. And I was like, I am not. These are not going outside of my room.
Right.
And I shared them with I was at a retreat and I shared them with the woman, my roommate at the retreat. And she said, "Oh, you really need to put these in a book. These are really great." And, the third time you hear something,
right,
pay attention, because that's, the way I say it is, that's the universe trying to catch your attention, especially if you hear it from different sources,
unrelated
sources. So I said, okay, if I were to write a book, what? How to get rid of your fears? She said, "Oh no, put your big girl panties on and kick your fears in the ass."
You know what I love about this story is that you were afraid to name it that, but the actual message in the book
I know
would not allow you to not name it what you really wanted to.
I know.
I just think that's an amazing story.
Yeah, because I spent time trying to figure out what was a safer name for the book, and it always gets attention, and in a positive way.
Right.
So it's never been the liability that I thought it was going to be.
Jane, you've dedicated a great percentage of your career to helping women in business. What has drawn you to work with women, business owners and entrepreneurs, or those who are interested in pursuing something outside of the ordinary sort of employment?
Well, coming from a technology background, I was often, when I was in school, I was often the only woman or one of just very few women in a class. When I went into business, I would be one of few women in the office, in meetings, and as I love business. I love being in business. And I love working with CEOs of all types. And I'm called to women at many different times because I didn't want to be the only one there. Mm-hmm. So we all grow on someone else's shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I want to help other women grow.
That's awesome. So how many years now have you been helping women, and what actual problems do you help them solve today?
In reality, I have always been helping women. Mm-hmm. One of the first places that I really formally did it was living in Hawaii.
Right.
Teaching, I taught a computer class for women that wanted to get off welfare, that were trying to get off welfare. And this was back in the early 90s, mid-90s, mm-hmm. before everyone had computers. So this was really pretty scary for them. And I could remember when I first started using computers, I didn't know what a computer was. Right. And so I was able to remember my fear, my hesitation, my not knowing. And I think that's also what makes a really great leader, is being able to remember that. Because I was able to lead them through their fears and their getting comfortable with computers.
Right. Do you touch bases with any of them, or?
No, that was before email, right. and
I bet you'd love to see how they're doing.
I would love. I got the best, the most heartwarming comment from one of the women in my class, because she said, "I want to be like you when I grow up." And I've said that about many other people, mm-hmm. and.
Well, Jane, speaking of class, and as if you were not already smart enough, you decided to pursue your PhD. Congratulations. I'm saying that to you on air. Congratulations. I can't wait
I guess I'll have to get it finished.
I cannot wait to call you Dr. Jane. I can't wait. Jane, what are you studying, and what led you to pursue that?
Actually, a friend of mine is getting her PhD, and she's doing it from a theological standpoint, and we're doing this using this discernment process, and that's what she was doing her PhD about. And she said when she started it, she said, well, you can run a program or something for me. We can do this together, and you can help me. I was like, if I'm going to do all that work for her, I'm getting mine.
Right.
So mine will be in organizational behavior, and it will be how we use that discernment process. So how we discern, how do we go within asking for guidance? Mm-hmm. How do we receive that guidance? How do we come to know to trust it? And how can we be in that process?
Right.
And so that's because I feel that there's a lot of benefit that in organizations, in groups, in teams, that there's so much dysfunction.
Right. Are you uncovering things you didn't know as you study, or?
Yes. And it's actually a way to, it's confirmed things that I knew and showed me things that I was not quite aware of, in the fact that one of the things, as I said earlier, is it's not a straight line.
Right.
And what oftentimes comes up is personal issues. And those need to be dealt with so that we can open up the space to be who we are, to move our businesses forward. And I've been running this program for 1.5 years now, and as you would expect, the first program has attracted a lot of very creative women.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so they actually get the process. And now I'm going to create a group with 4 to 6 women CEOs that have businesses with employees, as opposed to this group was women entrepreneurs, so primarily solopreneurs.
Right.
And that'll be the second phase of my research, because I know there's some when you've got employees, and I'm also doing this process with right now one leadership team, and I'm looking for a couple other leadership teams, because it's a little bit different when you work with a leadership team or with a team.
Right.
You're really pulling that team together. And one of the benefits of this process is if you've got a team, if there's a team there's some dysfunction,
sure,
or I'm afraid if I let you do what you want to do, say we're doing our strategic plan, and you want to do this year, I'm not going to get what I want.
Right.
And what this process does is brings us together, so in love, the highest and best for all, including you, me, the organization, all the employees. Mm-hmm. So it's really, it takes us out of that, it removes the friction.
Right. So are you looking for people who are already strong in leadership, or people who are wanting to develop the chops for leadership or become better leaders?
Either one. Mm-hmm. Because if you're really good, this program, this'll take you to another level.
Right.
If you're struggling, this will open some things up for you.
And what traits would you say a good leader has? And I hate to use that word good and bad. I don't want to, qualify it in that particular way, but an effective leader, or, what would you say are some great traits? And I know there are lots of books out here on the 7 best traits of a leader,
right?
et
And
cetera.
everybody's got,
right,
a couple some different ones. But what I look for is, are they open and willing to share, and are they willing to listen? because so oftentimes there's a lot of sharing that happens and not real listening.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us tend to listen from, how can I respond?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for you to breathe so that I can jump in and say something.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work out there on that. And when you really have that thought in your mind, you're no longer listening. You're really just, trying to retain that thought so you have an opportunity. And it's just whatever the person said. You could ask a question that they just answered, but you weren't listening.
Right.
And they could say, I just kind of said that to you. So, it's this whole thing on listening and being an active listener. There's a lot of research out there on that. And if we could all listen better, I think we could avoid a lot of, turmoil and so many other things if we just listen to what people are saying and take that at face value, not try to modify that to mean something else or be something else, but truly try to understand the message that is coming forth and to respond to it appropriately. And that's kind of some of the work that we've done together when it comes to allowing people to actually share exactly what it is that they want, and then continue to rewrite those things so that it's first clear to them, and then they feel comfortable articulating that out to the world, and then not having to defend it, but being able to consistently clarify it. And so that's also some of the work that we've done. I know it's challenging for leaders to communicate and to not only communicate, but to feel as if they are supported in their leadership. Do you work with leaders who may are very strong in the area of leadership, but just may not feel as if they are getting through to those who they feel are supporting them or following them?
Yes, and you're so right. That is a challenge. Is leaders tend to feel very isolated, and they put themselves sometimes, and others put themselves up on a pedestal,
right?
And they're oftentimes very concerned about looking good. Because they're the picture of the organization, they're the vision of the organization, and it's really hard to be real and be authentic.
Right.
And one of the things I do is give them the space to do that.
Tell people the difference between sage and discernment and a mastermind.
Okay, sage is a form of discernment. Discernment is the act of going within and listening to yourself, discerning what is yours to do from not a left brain thinking space, but from a heartfelt space. And one of the challenges is that when we're thinking with our brain, we can only access what we know. When we start thinking of with our heart, with that connection, we have access. In quantum physics, they call it the field of infinite possibilities.
Right. Which is a word you said earlier today.
Yeah, I love that word. The field, infinite possibilities.
Right.
You don't even know what can happen.
Right.
Sage is a version of discernment, is a process, 13-step process that we take you through. And then a mastermind is a group of people that get together to work together, to challenge each other, to answer questions, to bring up a problem or an issue and get feedback. Whereas the difference in the sage discernment is you bring forth your problem, your issue, your challenge, your opportunity, whatever it is that you want to share. you're sharing it with yourself.
Right.
And getting the answer from yourself. And then there's always a chance to share, because we find out that when we share in a group, it brings forth other. If you share with me, I go, oh yeah, I didn't even know I was thinking that until you brought it up.
Right. Are you going to be speaking anywhere soon, Jane, or where can people see you next?
I am speaking at the Tower Club next month in June for the SCN breakfast. Speaking there.
So the SOAR Leadership Breakfast.
Yep. That's, I think it's first Tuesday of the month. So I think that might be the 4th. I've just been reworking my calendar,
right.
And I'm opening up some more slots for speaking. So I'm always looking for speaking events. I got an event that I just spoke at called I Manifest Bliss that I spoke, and that's up on YouTube, and that was a great. I had so much fun with that.
You look like you had a lot of fun. I was watching that video recently. Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you, Jane?
My website, lovasconsulting.com. That's, oh boy. And my email is jlovis at Lovas Consulting. So you see under my name, it's spelled just like that, lovasconsulting.com or jlovis at lovasconsulting.com. And I'd love to hear from you.
Jane, thank you for being here.
Oh, this was so fun.
It was.
You are so great.
Oh, so are you, Jane. You just came and just showered us with all your leadership knowledge. And if you have been listening this hour, then you are now officially a leader.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, Jane, for being here. I want to thank you for joining us. Think Big is a weekly show. We bring to you thought leaders and influencers across business worlds and industries who are doing amazing things in their careers. If you have someone out there that you'd like to be a guest on Think Big, let me know. Drop me a line. I'm all over social at Akia Garnett. If you yourself are interested, also contact me. I'd love to hear what you're doing, and I'd love to help you share it with the world. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.